Kingston Police Services. Okay, welcome to the Kingston Police Services Board meeting number 22-10. We're going to start, this is, Thursday, July 21st, 2022. We're going to start the meeting with a presentation. I would ask Chief McNeely to introduce the people that will be presenting, if you could.
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce Detective Constable Jesse Braun, who is a seconded member to the Provincial Human Trafficking Intelligence-Led Joint Forces Strategy. He's been assigned to this unit in the fall of 2020 and is a 17-year member with the Kingston Police. And with him, he has Lana Saunders, and very pleased to have her along with us. She's been the coordinator with victim services in this special area and working very closely with us for many years, and has developed a real niche in this area. So I do welcome both of you to present today. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Chief. We're happy to be here. Do you want us to just take it away?
Sounds good.
Really? Okay. How does it look on your screen, Chief? Do you see?
I see your first page. It says Kingston Police Services Board meeting. That's the first page that we have. Okay.
And you're not getting the...
I see along the side pane, you have your different slides on the side.
If you go to presentation mode, Jesse, then it'll just be the slide. It's the little square on a stand in the bottom, next one over. That one. There you go. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for the invitation. I'm going to, we're going to break this up into two different slideshows. I was really excited to get the invitation to talk about human trafficking here today. And I brought in Lana, who is our in-house specialist with victims. And so, yeah, thanks, Lana.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe I'll run through this initial one and then we'll do a second introduction for you. Sure. When we get into your slides. Okay. So when I think about policing more broadly, under the Police Services Act, is, you know, I've got this marked as the most important slide in some previous presentations that I've done. When I get into anything, I think it's always good to make sure that I'm doing my duty. We get protections when we're doing our duties. And this is really going to be the most important thing that I think we can focus on moving into the future. And this slideshow, this blue section that we're going to do right now, I do talk about a bit of the past, how we got where we are, and then I kind of make some speculation about the future. So when I got the invitation from the chief, I was super excited because I knew the Police Services Board was very important. However, I didn't know exactly what your roles were. So I went ahead, found them in the Police Services Act, and I see that under section 31(1)(a), it looks as though you, among some other people, were responsible for giving me my job. So thank you very much. I'm very proud to be a Kingston police officer. I'm proud to live in the community and raise my family here. And I don't want to dox myself too much, but I did want to make the point that I'm very proud of our city and what we do to help the broader community. Now, in the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working in joint forces operations with different communities in the province of Ontario, and then on occasion in different provinces while investigating criminal offenses that happened in Ontario and Kingston. So I've gotten around quite a bit, and I'm very fortunate for that because it helps with my perspective on issues like human trafficking. because they are multi-jurisdictional. But that doesn't mean that the onus isn't on our police force to do everything we can. So, and then 31(1)B, I see where the important part for me, your job comes in, determining our objectives and priorities. So yeah, I just make that a 101 introduction. I introduced myself a little bit here, but I got this quote out of a guy named Jeff Booth. He wrote a book called The Price of Tomorrow. And it's basically, it had a big impact on me. I read it about 6 months ago. And a lot of the things that he was talking about regarding retooling for our future, I think that's going to be an important thread in human trafficking over the next decade. Presentation challenges. Human trafficking is such a big world, just like policing is a big world. It seems to touch every corner of what humans get into. So the challenge is to give you a good perspective on a macro level, but then I find the details really matter. And that usually comes down to who our victims are and then who our offenders are. That's going to be a real challenge here today, given our time frame, given a few things, but I do like to do my best to openly convey my thinking. And then I want to, in this presentation, help you fulfill your Police Services Act obligations, where you're setting the objectives and priorities so that me and my family and you and your family and all the people we care about in Kingston and Ontario and Canada can have a better future. So when I started in 2017, human trafficking looked very different. You could actually drive down Montreal Street and you would,
Charger? There was no beeping.
Not sure if we lost you there.
yeah, can you hear us? Our screen just went black.
We can see your screen, but we just stopped hearing you.
Okay, we might have lost connection for a second. Oh, great. How do I go back a slide? All right. So you guys can still hear us.
Yes, we can.
Here.
We can now hear you and see you.
Okay. Okay, we're back. And we're going to switch to presentation mode, which I just learned about. Okay, so in 2005, I started, I think we got it sorted out. We just blacked out for a second. Thanks, Manja. Yeah, so human trafficking has changed a lot, and that's mostly because the tools of the trade have changed. So I like to start off in 2005 because that's really where my perspective begins, unless I'm reading about policing. In 2005, I got on and life was good. 2006, we got Twitter. 2007, I got my first iPhone. I remember driving down Sir John A. Macdonald Boulevard thinking, I can literally do everything from my pocket. And we're getting there, so it's good. I like the Netflix. If anybody's ever seen what happened with Netflix, there was a simple change in technology, or sorry, there was a simple change in technology. Netflix disrupted Blockbuster, and it seemed like overnight, I used to go home from 11 Queen Police Station, stop at Blockbuster, get my movie, and drive home and watch my movie, drop it off the next day. Obviously, that's a different world now. 2008, we had the great financial crisis. It's really hard for me to take these macro events that affect everybody and not see the correlation with crimes in, in our city and province and country. 2009, we get some things that are used daily by human traffickers and everybody else, right? It's made our life better. GPS, Uber, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin. We do a lot of voice over internet phone. It's a challenge, but it's also, there's a lot of benefits for investigators when you're looking at this type of technology and the evidence we can get from it. So about 5 years after Twitter came up, we get this Twitter revolutions, Libya, Tunisia, and Egypt. Again, that's a macro thing, but we're subject to these events. Silk Road was commonly where people would go and buy drugs and have them shipped to their house. That was 2011. That's more than 10 years ago. Facebook comes up. Facebook buys Instagram in 2012. Kodak goes down that same year. I don't know if you guys remember Kodak. It was a big name. It had a long run, over 100 years as a company. And then I just really like this Forbes quote where it says, the problem is that during its 10-year window of opportunity, Kodak did little to prepare for the later disruption. And I just want to make sure when I present something, I'm giving a good idea of things are changing. They're changing really fast. And then back to the retooling. We need skills that we didn't need even 5 or 10 years ago. So I'm doing my best to work on that stuff from our end. More disruptions. We see all the newspapers go away. Software starts eating everything. You're not going to stop that one. Again, it's like this macro thing that we're all subject to. 2018 Backpages was seized. That was commonly used to post sex advertisements. It went down and it almost seems immediately Leo's list popped up. So then 2020, we start seeing more people working remotely. We start seeing Starlink go up, and that's satellite internet. So you'll see a lot more people having access to the internet. And then interestingly enough, because I'm really into cryptocurrencies right now, in 2021, MasterCard bought CipherTrace, which at the time was what we were using in the OPP to do blockchain analysis. I think we can leave that little history lesson there. Again, the largest hotel companies don't own hotels, and largest taxi companies don't own a taxi. So it's a really interesting environment. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of pictures. If you know them all, I'd be happy.
I think our screen's frozen.
Oh yeah, what do you see now? I got like Bitcoin and Twitter and stuff like that up.
2006, 2009.
Twitter is what I see.
Oh
And,
really?
yeah. And also Fred has a question for you while we're at this part.
Okay, can you jump in?
I was just going to mention that the slides are not advancing.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think you needed to see those slides, so we might as well move on. We'll bring up our next presentation, which is going to be more of a human sex trafficking 101. And then I'm going to introduce you a little bit further to Lana. Did you guys enjoy that little intro? I spent some time working on that, and just laying out that 15-year period, I think it makes the next 10 or 15 years of my career, at least, it makes me more prepared for it.
Definitely shows how things are constantly evolving in your field.
Yeah.
Brad?
Yeah, thanks. I just, in terms of feedback, Jesse, I thought it was totally awesome that you researched your audience and trying to pitch it to the board. That's a fantastic effort. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Communication's big, right? So a lot of the intelligence side of the field that I work in is just making sure you're getting good data coming in. And then you're making a good product where you're adding some value. So yeah, thank you. Let's bring this up onto our, how did we do this last time?
Right here.
Oh yeah. Oh, why'd that come up? Do you guys see that screen? What is?
We still have the old one on.
Oh boy. Okay, let me stop sharing and then jump back into it. Okay, do you remember how you share? Screen share, there it is. Let's try this one more time. Where are files? How's that look?
Perfect.
Yeah, what is human trafficking is up on everybody's screen.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, so this just gives you an idea of the wording that we're dealing with. I'll go through this real quick. Recruitment, transportation, transfer, receiving, holding, concealing, harboring persons, or exercising control. That is going to be really important for us in court. Exercising control is the big one that we have to spend a lot of time proving. For the purpose of exploitation, which is further written up at the bottom of the screen, or facilitating their exploitation. So the definition that we're using in the criminal code is the action or fact of treating someone in order to benefit from their work. And then Lana, can you introduce yourself a bit?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lana Saunders, and I currently work for Victim Services of Kingston and Frontenac. I have been in an HT specific role, or should I say anti-human trafficking specific role, since 2017. I have been with the service since 2015. I really enjoy the work that I do, and just to give you an idea of exactly what I do, many duties, but primarily I work directly with victims. So I work with youth at risk, those who are being trafficked, those who have been trafficked. So that's the grouping that I work with. I also do educational presentations such as these, and I work closely with community partners and agencies and police in the field of anti-human trafficking. Our program, Victim Services, is funded through the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. So we do have funding available that we can tap into called the VQRP, the Victim Quick Response Program, which can provide victims of human trafficking certain financial support in different areas. And I do, if we get to that point, I do have a slide on that for those of you who are interested. Okay, can we advance?
Yeah. Just hit it once or hit the space bar.
Technology is a wonderful thing. Okay. Did you want to speak to this, Jesse?
Yeah, I'll do this slide real quick. I'm actually not going to go off the slide though. I've got a notepad going. I want to talk about the prevalence of human trafficking in Kingston. There is no shortage of work. any day when I come into work and I open up Leo's list, where commonly sex advertisements are posted. There's typically a collection of like 50 or so in the last 24 hours, and they get, by the time we can scrape them, they do have like a few thousand views each. Just on the note of Leo's list, I haven't seen any payments going to Leo's list that haven't been in cryptocurrency. So again, it's just technologies that we're adapting to, doing our best with. Talking about technology, big data is very hard for me to deal with at this point. Project Rig, which you might have seen in a document that I had sent out a little bit earlier to Lori. Project Rig had over 1 terabyte of data. And when we're getting to court on these, in our bail court, we're almost running full trials. So we're almost running a full trial at bail court, and then we do a prelim, and then we have a trial. And to tell a story in a concise way, when you have 1 terabyte of data, it becomes, the challenge is like monumental. I struggle with it. I don't know how we get through it. I don't know, you know, at some point we've got to do an autopsy on what we're doing, but yeah. And then the last point I wanted to take on this slide was prevention strategies and how important they are. We do a lot of outreach in Kingston. Our hotel industry is amazing. Our education of our youth, and even trying to reach out to the youth that miss the typical high school stuff, like One Roof, kids that attend there and maybe not like the typical high schools. Yeah, I think we're doing a good job there, and I think that's got to continue if we're going to succeed in our endeavors. All right. Come on.
Yeah, Jesse's right. Education is, I believe, one of the best ways to prevent human trafficking. So, I also want to say that human trafficking is different from prostitution in the sense that the girls, and for the ease of the presentation today, I'm going to refer as the victims as girls and the perpetrators as boys, male and female. That's not to say that there aren't male victims and female perpetrators. It's just language for the ease of the presentation. But anyway, to say that these girls are being forced, coerced, manipulated, deceived into the exploitation and the sex trafficking, whereas completely different than somebody who is entering into sex work by choice. And when I say choice, I mean more choice circumstances. Their circumstances have led them to choose prostitution. So whether it be financial, which is mostly financial, right? But so the choice has been taken away from these girls who are trafficked, right? They don't choose their clients. They don't get to choose the hours they work. They don't get to choose who they are servicing, where they're servicing their clients, what services they're providing. That choice has been taken away. Okay. So the work that I do, I'm not an investigator. I'm just a victim support person. So I'm dealing with victims, maybe more in depth than Jesse would, because it's that one-on-one, right? That's all I do. So victims, in my experience, and I'm just going to speak from my experience, predominantly youth, although I have had clients older, in their 30s or 40s, but mostly I'm seeing youth, right? Those who are economically disadvantaged, mental health can come into play. Some have substance or addictions, dependencies, not all, but a lot. Low self-esteem and self-worth is common pretty much across the board, right? That is a key vulnerability that I see. Somebody with a history of physical or sexual abuse as a child Not to say they themselves have been physically or sexually abused, but maybe they've seen it modeled in the home, mom and dad. Those types of things. So the sex, like I said, 97% of victims are female. That's what we're seeing. And the stats from this slideshow are from Stats Canada. So, and also I just want to point out, we don't put a lot of statistics out because it's hard to capture statistics, right? Stats Canada can only grab those that are reported to police. And we do know, like I deal with victims who have not disclosed to police. Okay, they're not at that point, they're not comfortable. And that's another thing I'd like to say, is that in order to work with myself for support, services, financial aid, you don't have to have disclosed to police. That's just.
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so again, I just wanted to say we don't have a lot of stats, and I already explained the reason, but I have included this slide in the presentation just to give you an example of age. And as you can see, it leans to the younger, right? So 18 to 24 is the most populated, but that's not to say that the trafficking, the luring, the grooming didn't start prior to the 18-year mark. This is just when they've disclosed to police. We are seeing them younger and younger by the year, for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely say that that is anecdotally exactly how things line up when we're on the road.
I have a question. So like in major newspapers, there's been articles about decriminalizing the sex trade or prostitution. Like, who would lobby for that? Like, for that to be, and doesn't that take away from the victim's rights? Like human rights? I mean, how does that come to be?
Yeah, I'll make one point on it. The sex workers have do have a very strong lobbying group, and they do have a perspective that is that it's a career kind of unlike any other, and that they deserve some protections. And I do come across sex workers that are independent, so there is some evidence to what they're saying. Very, very sticky area. Often when I'm asked questions along those lines, I'm thankful that one of my duties is not making laws. So I know that I'm kind of copping out on that question, but it might be better for us to refrain from diving into the weeds.
Yeah, I just want to add one small note to that. I think that the reasoning that I've heard behind that is so we're not pushing our sex workers like underground, and so allowing it to be a more safe environment for them to provide their services.
Kind of like they're asking for it to be regulated.
Yeah, I think they're asking for. I think a lot of that comes down to, you know, they get stopped by the police at hotels, and they feel like we're obstructing their pursuit of an income in the way they want to make an income. So I definitely understand it, and personally, the only response is, you know, I just want to make sure that you're safe and that nobody is exploiting you. And if you're not the victim of a crime, then I'm happy to leave you alone, and that type of conversation. I can also tell you that some of the sex workers are good sources of information. So it's important for the police and the police in Kingston to have a good relationship with them, a good working relationship where we can express our ideas to each other. So, great question though. So who are the traffickers? Yeah, that could be anybody. There's definitely a certain age group, just like the victims, that seems to make a lot of sense to me. I'm going to hit some statistics here for you. We're over 120 charges for human trafficking year to date. I think that speaks to some of the earlier points. Our human traffickers are, you know, many different styles of human traffickers. So I think the important part there is just that we're laying a ton of charges, and yeah, that's a prevalence thing. This slide kind of speaks for itself. I mean, I'm not getting a question, am I? I think I'm just getting some background noise. Lori, are you okay with that?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So they're definitely men. Sometimes you come across a female that's kind of doing the trafficking, and often they are reporting to another man. But yeah, I think that's good there. I'll give you one anecdote to kind of pull some of these things back together. I was out of province a couple months ago, arresting a human trafficker for offenses that happened in Kingston. And when we arrested him, he was in his home, in his bedroom, and he had 2 cell phones with him. On those cell phones, the structure of our team is very, very well thought out. I get those cell phones, I give them to a digital technology professional who is able to extract information within a few hours of the arrest so that we're ready for bail court. That particular guy was in the process of trafficking females on the other side of the country. So that is a huge challenge, and it's multi-jurisdictional. And again, when you're crossing provinces to make the arrest, and then your victims are a couple provinces further west, it's just some interesting challenges that you have to wrap your head around.
Jeremy, did you have a question?
Any questions?
Jimmy, your hand is up.
Just jump in if you got anything you want to say. I'm going to slide through that one. Just respecting your time. Okay, that was going to be types of pimps. This is kind of a common thing you see. Different styles for pimps. I won't get into that. It is a spectrum. Recruitment, these are typical stages we see. You can, when you break down the stories from the victims, you can really categorize these. It's very evident. I believe in the way they frame that. Recruitment, almost all social media. And then, do you want to talk about some group?
Okay, so ways in which, because it's hard to kind of wrap your head around how is this actually happening. So ways in which people are being groomed, lured into the sex trafficking. The pimp, for lack of a better term, or trafficker, they find a victim and they identify their needs and their vulnerability. Okay, so what does this girl need? What does she want? Right? Then he does his very best to try and fulfill that need, to establish control, right? We can go break those needs down into things like love and acceptance. A lot of these people, like I said, are youth. They're coming of age, they're testing the waters, they want to have that independence, they're looking for a good time, fun, you know, going against everything that their parents are telling to do in some cases. So yeah, they have that want to be, you know, independent, like I said, maybe travel, experiment with drugs, alcohol, just live a life where they're free to do as they choose, right? And the trafficker will hone in on that, and they will give them those opportunities. You know, if it's the boyfriend or Romeo pimp, he's going to love bomb her. He's going to tell her everything she wants to hear, that how much he loves her, and he's going to be there for her, and they're going to live happily ever after. Whatever it is that she's needing, he's going to fill that, right? So he's going to pretend to be helpful and supportive in order to create that emotional connection, build the trust and the dependency, and selling the dream. So we're going to live happily ever after. And that is a technique used by a lot of pimps initially going into things. Like I said, in order to gain the trust, establish the control, and talk her into or have her buy into the idea of sex work. That also, I just want to point out, a lot of my victims and clients that I deal with, they don't even identify as a victim initially. Okay, this manipulation, coercion, deception, it's so low key that they don't even see the process of this grooming and luring, right? Often they will enter into things jointly, and he'll, you know, present the idea, and she may go along with things originally, and that in her mind makes her not a victim, right? Because originally she's agreed to do this, which again creates a barrier for her to reach out and receive help. Okay, I don't think we need to get into a whole lot of detail here for the sake of time, but introduction to drugs or alcohol could happen in order to gain control. It's, again, the love bombing, the buying her things, providing things, gifts, money, whatever it is she wants, the latest iPhone, travel. I've seen them you know, present, well, we'll go here, we'll go there, different cities, we'll shop, whatever it is she wants, he's going to provide that. Until it leads to the full-blown exploitation. And force, threat can come later down the line, but the coercion, deception, manipulation, those are the 5 key ways in which the exploitation is he's getting her to provide the sexual services and exploit her. And of course, she is, in turn, whatever work she does, the money from that, the profits are going right back to her trafficker, which also is key, right, to sex trafficking. Yeah.
You know what? Maybe we'll do some concluding remarks. Oh, actually, I'll just point out. So there's what Leo's list might look like on any given day on the side of your screen. I do this breakdown on the economics of some of these offenses that we're dealing with in Kingston, and again, it is motivated by making money, and you know, any financial books that I've read lately are kind of pointing out in the future. So taking that future approach is some of our financial stuff going on in the world, in Canada and Ontario and Kingston. It's kind of scary. I'm worried what that might lead to in 10 years. Some of that stuff keeps me up at night, frankly. Why victims stay.
Yeah, well, there's many reasons why they stay. One, I think I've already said, they believe they're in love with their trafficker. They believe it's a true relationship. They believe in that dream that he sold them, and they believe that that's coming. Fear of physical violence. He may have made threats against loved ones. He may be physically abusing her. He has put in her head that, you know, he's the only one there for them, because part of the coercion and manipulation is that he's their only voice. He's isolating her from friends, family, any support, right? So she gets to the point where she feels like dependent and isolated. They feel like it's their only option. After a while, they're so broken that they feel like there's no way out of the situation. So I always try to impress with the girls that I deal with who are still in the life that no matter how bad it gets and you think that you can't get out, there's always a way. Shame and guilt, a lot are afraid to come forward. And that can be blackmail as well, can be brought in. But you know, not having things exposed to their parents or their friends, their peers. Yeah, it can be another hold that he has over her. Fear of exposure, right? Or threats of exposure.
That's probably good.
Yeah.
Do you want to do any sort of concluding remark here? I can go first.
Sure. Or if we have questions from the floor.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just say, I got one thing I really wanted to say at the end of this is just that pulling it back around to my opening statements was just, you know, I'm so proud to be part of the Kingston Police, and I'm proud to have you all as the Police Services Board. And I think that when we communicate and share our experiences, I think that we make an impact. I know that sometimes when you're zooming out from that macro level, it's hard to see the impact, but I know that when you get into the details and the individuals, that it's meaningful, and we're proud to work with everybody here. Chief and all my colleagues, and Lana is amazing, and you all are amazing, so I'm happy to be on the team. We'll open it up for Q&A.
Jimmy, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. My first question is a two-part. The first question is, when we talk about the human traffickers, how where they recruit those people beside the social media? Is from outside the country, inside the country, outside the province, other small town and the surrounding the Kingston or any city, or the national or international? How they recruit those people?
On all the charges that we've laid year to date, they have been recruited. All the victims have been linked to Kingston, and that's how we've got onto the project. So there are local girls, and in only one case was the pimp local. Often you're seeing, you know, more out of the, like, we're in this geographic position, which we have to take into account here. Where Toronto's very close, Ottawa's very close, and Montreal's very close. And they're all, you know, they have different cultures and different crimes, but they're bigger hubs, and they do have more human trafficking. So I don't know if that answers the question, but a lot of my time is spent finding our victims, our girls, and then trying to proceed to build the case.
Yeah, local.
Yeah, local girls, yeah. And then not typically local pimps, but sometimes.
Okay. Okay. The second is another question, is suggestion in your presentation. Due to all respect, you have a picture for one of the gentlemen at the very first one with those white hat and stuff like that. And then you have a second picture with just the hands on. So may I suggest in the future for in the such presentation, we shouldn't show anybody's face these days. It's a very, very difficult to not let the people think, oh, okay, oh, this is from the particular community person. See, they are showing this one. So it's just a suggestion. And I noticed that picture should not be there in the presentation. It should showing this maybe hands or something, but not the face.
Yeah, you know what? Point well taken. And I'm always going to say that feedback where there's constructive criticism, we'll get that fixed up because that's where we learn, right? And that's why we're doing this here today. So, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. But it's a good presentation. It's very sad to see all those numbers and the way how those victims are getting manipulated and put into that such situation. It's very sad. It's very sad. But I appreciate all of your hard work and getting on the cases and on this side and working on it and giving us the information. Good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Then I would just like to say thank you for your time. That was a good presentation. And I'm happy that you are fully aware of how it evolves and keep up the great work. The victims need people like yourselves, right? And it's not something you hear about day to day here in Kingston. It's probably something people choose to ignore than accept. So.
Well, again, thank you. So excited to be here today. Happy to be part of the big team. And if you guys need anything, you can reach out to me directly. I know my emails are with Lori and Lana's is too. So please reach out if you got anything that you want to talk about off camera or anything in the future.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye
Thanks,
now.
Jesse. Thanks, Lana.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, very good. Chief, thanks for putting that together. I like these week, month to month, what we've been doing. So I hope we continue that. That's great. So we're going to do, is there a disclosure of conflict of interest? No? Okay. Can I get an approval of the agenda? Jeff, Jimmy, good, all in favor? Thank you. And then can I get the adoption of the minutes for meeting 2209 held on June 16th, 2022 to be adopted? Jeff, Jimmy, good, all in favor? Thank you. We're going to go to the communications. If we can have a motion to accept the communications. And that would be Jeff and Christian, all in favor. Thank you. I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions with respect to any of the following communications received from the Ministry of the Attorney General, the Canadian Association of Police Governance, the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, and the Ontario Human Rights Commission. Okay. That was, I must say though, that was really well put together by the Ontario Human Rights Commission. That report was very educational and very good. Actually, going back, we're going to need a motion for the in the Canadian Association of Police Governance part. I need, if we want to sponsor $500 for the police governance being held in the association conference that's being held in Saskatoon, September 9th, December 11th, 2022. Would you like to donate $500? Can I get the, we do every year. So thank you, Christian and Jeff. Yep, good. All in favor. Thank you. So we will, the Kingston Police Services Board contribute $500 to the 33rd annual conference of the Canadian Association of Police Governance in Saskatoon. Okay, very good. Then we're going to move on to delegations, of which there is nil. Reports. I'm going to ask that we have a motion to accept the reports. Anyone? Jimmy, thank you. Christian, good. All in favor? Thank you. And then I'm going to ask the chief to speak to the reports if I could.
Thank you. And I'll ask Staff Sergeant Jeff Thompson to speak to the first two, that on the CIICC legislation as well as the public complaints.
Hi, Jeff. Welcome.
And by the way, I just want to add one component there that Staff Sergeant Thompson has been very much a pioneer in human trafficking in terms of the investigation side of the house as well when he was in the street crime area. So very much part of the big picture as well.
Thanks, Chief. It's nice to see human trafficking getting a much larger footprint, both in the media and in policing as a whole. It's definitely an important topic. So, moving on to the report on complaints and the CIICC collection. I'll deal with that item first. I'm pleased to report, as has been the practice in previous years, we are fully compliant with the CIICC. Sergeant Scott Huffman, who also works in the Professional Standards Unit, does the ongoing monitoring of our street checks, as they're called in the media, to ensure that they're in compliance with the CIICC. And as I said, we are fully compliant. In the first 6 months of 2022, there was no collection that would present a concern at this time. And then, subject to any questions on that, I'll move on to the complaints component of the report. Okay, and in terms of the public complaints that we need to report back on, this is for the time period of January 1st to the end of June 2022. During that time period, there were 22 public complaints that were received by the Professional Standards Bureau. As I noted, this represents a decrease of 12% from the same time reporting period in 2021. This is fairly consistent with what we've seen over the past 5 years. In 2021, we had 25 public complaints during the same time period. 2020, we had 14. 2019, we had 6, a bit of an outlier in that year. And in 2018, we had 15. You can see under sections 1 and 2 how those are broken down. Perhaps under section 2, I will bring to light that the OIPRD has a fairly robust screening process. As I'm sure you're all aware, the OIPRD is the agency that accepts, screens and monitor these public complaints, and then they are assigned to the Professional Standards Unit predominantly to do the investigations. A significant portion of our complaints that were received had previously been screened out by the OIPRD. And then under Appendix A, you can see the screening process that the OIPRD applies in order to either screen the investigation in or screen the complaint out. It's quite lengthy, so I'll leave that to you to review at your leisure. Are there any questions upon the public complaints portion before I move on to local inquiries? So a local inquiry is an investigation that is brought to the attention of the service directly. It comes from outside the police service, and they're typically of a lower seriousness threshold that may not warrant the involvement of the OIPRD, or the complainant has elected not to proceed by way of the OIPRD, as is their right. During this time period, we've had, again, until the end, from January until the end of June, we've had a total of 4 local inquiries, which is a decrease from 9 from last year. So overall, we are seeing a reduction in complaints. Bearing in mind, it's a fairly small sample size, but it is, I think, a positive trend and speaks to the good work that's done by our membership day to day. When you consider that on average, we'd have probably the better part of 25,000 interactions with the community during that 6-month period. To have very few complaints of this nature, I think speaks well of the professionalism of our membership. I guess in closing, and under item 3 that I did miss, 100% of the complaints from 2021 are resolved and no longer under investigation. And are there any questions arising from the report or my remarks?
Any questions? Doesn't look like it.
Okay,
Thank you, Jeff.
thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll follow up with the statistical report. And we're talking from the first quarter, so from January to the end of June. So overall, our calls for service over the past 6 months have been seen a 2% decrease from that same period since last year. That being said, we've seen an increasing trend of violence where we've had 4 homicides in the first 6 months, all of which have been resolved. This really highlights the excellent and collaborative work that's being done by our members, from the first call that's made to our communication center right through to the frontline response, to our investigators, to our ident officers, and then bringing the cases forward for prosecutions through our court office. We've seen a number of increase in traffic stops also by our frontline members, leading to firearms, weapons, and drug seizures. One example led to charges involving the possession of bear spray, sawed-off shotgun, prohibited weapons, including brass knuckles, along with drugs and drug paraphernalia. Our 911 calls for service have increased by 9% compared to the same period in 2021. This is highlighting the volume of 911 calls that are taken by our communication center, who are very busy. The crimes against persons are down by about 12%, 12.5%, but we have seen a 7% increase in reported sexual assault cases. And contributing to the increase of this has been some of the transfers of sexual assault cases from the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as our focus on human trafficking investigations, as well as internet child exploitation, which has another focus by our organization. The number of robbery offenses have decreased slightly, with more substantial decreases seen in criminal harassment, harassing phone calls, as well as threats. Fraud investigations have increased slightly over the past 6 months compared to last year, and we continue to see Kijiji type scams, identity theft, grandparent scams. And a recent example was highlighted by police through the media, where a person was impersonating a victim's grandson and allegedly stated he was arrested for drug offenses and needed $8,000 to be released from bail. Police were called, and ultimately a 22-year-old individual from France was arrested and charged with attempted fraud over $5,000 and obstructing police. We continue to see an increase in hate-related incidents. In 2021, there were 26 reports versus year-to-date. We've had 27 such reports to police, which have been investigated and also followed up through our reassurance program, which is run through our core unit, our EDI member being Vanessa Gerasimo. This could include these types of reassurance program could include mediating neighbor disputes, referrals to programs such as intersections through our youth diversion, as well as other community supports. Examples of reported incidents include mischief such as swastikas and racist words that are painted on properties, online threats targeting victims, verbal racist comments directed at our members of our community, as well as assaults. Our school resource officers have also provided additional resources by addressing incidents of bullying and disrespectful online behavior. CORE, including, as I mentioned, our DEI officer, are using a multi-pronged approach by partnering with agencies, as well as increasing our outreach to diverse communities. By continuing to build on this trust and confidence in policing, we're hoping to promote a comfort and confidence in reporting these matters to the police in the first place. Again, our EDI officer is going to be launching a hate crime education series with some online reporting options that is coming up. Our crimes against property has increased by about 10%, the drivers of which have been theft of vehicles, as well as other thefts such as shoplifting, porch theft, and theft from vehicles. As spoken about in the past, our mobile crisis rapid response team has been expanded upon, giving us more coverage in the 24-hour period. We are receiving overwhelmingly positive supports of this program, both internally and from our community members and our partners. So in terms of our mental health calls for service, we've seen a decrease in this first 6 months by about 20% compared to the 6 months in the last year's period. The decrease in calls for service could be attributed to the coming out of the COVID that we're having, and other services and agencies that are able to engage more in person and do more outreach that's been happening. So that's helpful. The 2022 apprehension rates for the 6-month time frame is about 42%, with wait times by our officers at the hospital with averaging about an hour. This is a marked reduction from before our MCERT program had begun, where we had a minimum of 2-hour wait times in the hospitals. These improvements can be attributed to our Certain Coast program, where people are diverted to community resources and follow up through our addictions mental health teams and our coast officers. So that's our statistical report. I can move on to the use of force report. So in the second quarter, there were 18 incidents of use of force reports that were submitted. And as noted in our statistical reports, during that time, there were 11,759 calls for service. So that's about 0.15% of our calls for service where we've had to file a use of force report. Some highlights, there were no firearms discharged. When that does happen, typically it's when there's an animal that's been injured, but there were none this term. A CEW was deployed 3 times and firearms were displayed 8 times and pointed 12 times. So some examples include the following: where a CEW has been deployed, that involved incidents where a person fled from police from a break and enter that was in progress. He was armed with a knife and did not obey commands, and the male was arrested with no injuries. Another example where the CEW was deployed was a person in mental health crisis swinging a piece of wood at members of the public and at the officers. The CEW was deployed and the person was apprehended and taken to the hospital for assessment. Police responded to 2 males fighting. Information was provided that one male was in possession of a handgun. Police firearm was pointed at the subject, who was arrested without incident. Police responded to a domestic related call where a firearm was believed to have been involved. Police firearm was pointed at the subject and arrested without incident. And finally, a number of calls where firearms were pointed and displayed involved our emergency response units executing drug search warrants and high-risk arrests of wanted persons. And that concludes the reports.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for what the reports that have just been done? Jimmy, go ahead.
Yes, do we have any numbers of incident theft of the vehicles or any vacation RVs or homes or a motorcycle in the Kingston?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Is any number or any idea that how many cases have been reported with stolen vehicles or RVs in Kingston?
Stolen vehicles.
Yeah.
So the theft of vehicles that we have in the last 6 months have been 105 compared to 90 in the in 2021 during that same time frame.
And how many was resolved?
How many?
Was it resolved?
I don't have the exact number that are resolved. We do find them locally for sure. There are some that have been found from out of our municipality that have been located here. But we've also found stolen vehicles from within our municipality. But many of them too are also stolen and are shipped overseas. So the high-end vehicles or thefts are still happening, and they're happening all across the province and across Canada, really.
Also, is there any law or any protocol in place that if somebody's vehicle has been stolen and that person is not in town for a few days, they come back, they report, and then police can tell them, no, it's too late now, we cannot find the person in town or anywhere, and maybe you contact with your insurance and the case should be closed there?
We would encourage everyone to report their vehicle stolen, whether it's after the fact or when they just notice it. It's important for us to put it on CPIC and to do the investigations that follow up through that. So we would be encouraging people to report that to police.
Okay. No, my question was after report, if somebody reporting it, that their vehicle is stolen and they was away for a week or so, when they came back home, they saw either stolen or vandalized and they make a report. And the case was closed and they found out online the case is closed without somebody approach them and talk to them and give them the investigation report or discuss the investigation report, how that incident was found and why they are closing the case.
You were cutting in and out, but I think I have the gist of your question.
Anyway, that's fine. I have a very poor internet connection where I am available sitting right now.
So,
So-
but I think I got the gist. I think if you were asking that, if the case is closed, has been closed, and the person wants to know what the results have been, I mean,
Yeah.
certainly they are entitled to know what investigative steps have happened, and the investigator can follow up with them to, to talk about that, and also to give some preventative measures if that's appropriate to do as well.
Okay.
So that conversation should happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Sometimes, though, it is difficult if the vehicle has been stolen and there's been really no evidentiary leads that can be taken. But the fact is that the vehicle and the license plate, the VIN number is all on CPIC, so that other agencies or anybody else that's running the vehicle can determine if it's been stolen or not, because it's been reported. So that's important
All right.
to locate.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thanks for presenting the reports, Chief. So next, we're going to go to motions. Can I get a motion that the Kingston Police Services Board reschedules its September 15th, 2022 board meeting to September 22nd, 2022 to accommodate scheduled vacations? Christian, Jeff, all in favor? Very good. Thank you very much. We can make that happen. And may I ask the chief to provide a brief bio for the new officer after you're finished. I will call the motion.
All right, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Scott Jackson, who's a new recruit effective September 6th, 2022. Scott returns to the Kingston Police, having previously acted as a part-time special constable from June 2010 to July 2011, before being hired full-time as a corrections officer with Correctional Services Canada at the Joyceville Institution. While serving at the Joyceville Institution, Scott was a part of the emergency response team. He's a Kingston native, and he's remained in the area his entire life, graduating from St. Lawrence College with a diploma in police foundations. And coincidentally, one of our inspectors here, Lillian Murdoch, instructed him while he was at St. Lawrence College. He's volunteered with the Kingston Area Minor Hockey Association, first as a hockey coach, before assuming roles as a team manager. In 2008, he volunteered with the Kingston Police by posing as a hostage taker for the emergency response unit to prepare them for hostage situations. So policing has been a long time goal for Scott, and we're really excited to welcome him to the Kingston Police family, and a valued member of the community already, and now just part of our organization here. So a big welcome to Scott Jackson.
You're on mute, Jared.
Yep, thank you. May I have a motion for that? Jimmy, Jeff, all in favor? Thank you. And that the Kingston Police Service Board appoints, just that, wasn't it? Yep. Okay. Am I going on to new business?
So we can do some staffing updates for you, and Scott and I'll share the giving a few bios of the retirements that have happened and two that are going to be happening at the end of this month here. So the first one I can take, and that's in the retirement of Inspector Brian Begbie. So Brian joined the Kingston Police in 1985, starting out in uniform patrol, and then moving to criminal investigations in 1994. He continued in criminal investigations as a sergeant and as a staff sergeant until assigned to the patrol division as a platoon commander in January of 2004. Since his promotion to his current rank in 2007, he has overseen operations in the administrative support, investigative services, and the patrol division. Early in his career, he became involved in the criminal investigations field, where he demonstrated exceptional dedication and thoroughness in all his cases, which earned him a reputation as an exceptional investigator. Brian received a Police Services Board commendation in 2001 for his thorough investigation of a particularly horrific homicide, and was commended in 2010 for his part in ensuring the successful conclusion of the investigation into the complex quadruple homicide discovered at the Kingston Mills Locks in June of 2009. He was awarded the 2005 Kingston Police Corps Award by his peers for the way in which he exemplified core values of the Kingston Police. His contributions to the Kingston community go beyond his badge and represent innumerable hours spent in charitable endeavors and youth sporting activities. Brian is a graduate of the Rotman School of Management Executive Program at the University of Toronto, as well as the Canadian Police College Executive Development Program in Policing. We wish Brian all the best in the next phase of his life as he enters retirement after 37 years with the Kingston Police, and he retired May the 6th of 2022. And I'll follow up with Special Constable Patty Loyst, who retired June 30th of 2022. So Patty started her career with the force in April of 1990 as a communications operator, having previously worked in the area, both in the Ontario Provincial Police and the Belleville Police Service. As a communicator, Patty was the reassuring voice at the other end of the line in the 911 Emergency Communications Center and often had to deal with several concurrent emergency incidents. She was recognized in 1995 for her calm and professional handling of one particular morning that involved a suspicious death, a bomb scare, a foot pursuit, and a drive-by shooting. As a dispatcher, she was also commended for her part in untangling the whereabouts of a potentially suicidal person, a situation that involved a police service in a neighboring jurisdiction. In 1996, she took on a 6-month assignment to provide clerical assistance to our Special Services Unit and administrative support. And at the conclusion of this assignment, she was praised for her initiative and aptitude. In March of 1998, she was appointed as a special constable for the execution of her current duties in the Court Services Unit with respect to searching, guarding, and controlling prisoners, providing court security, serving summonses and subpoenas, and transporting prisoners. In recent years, her duties have also included the collection of DNA samples for the DNA data bank. Patty has also been an active participant in many community events sponsored by the Kingston Police, including the Bike Ride for Heart, the Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics, and the Police Equestrian Championship, just to name a few. Patty is a very reliable, dedicated, knowledgeable employee who takes pride in her work and has the ability to work on tight timelines and make things come together, which is particularly crucial for the services provided by the Court Services Unit. We wish Patty all the best in the next phase of her life as she enters retirement after 32 years with the Kingston Police.
And I will speak to Constable Dave Morissette, who's retiring on July 31st. Dave began his law enforcement career with Durham Regional Police in July of 1990, where he developed his skills for 7.5 years before making the move back to his hometown and joining the Kingston Police in February of 1998. Spending the majority of his career in uniform patrol, Dave has collected an array of certificates and accolades throughout the years. If one were to even casually flip through the contents of Dave's employment file, they would no doubt land on multiple compliments from community members. There exists not just one, but 2 letters from drivers involved in motor vehicle accidents. And though in both cases the drivers were at fault, Dave's handling of the situation impressed them to the point that they felt it necessary to commend his assistance to them. Performance reviews from supervisors have consistently praised him as a positive influence on his platoon and a valuable role model to others. His value is recognized across the organization, and in 2010, he was awarded the Kingston Police Officer of the Year Award. Nominated by colleagues, this award was presented to recognize sworn officers who demonstrate dependability in their work performance by effecting their duties with integrity, a positive attitude, and a commitment to teamwork, by reflecting the Kingston Police core values when interacting with the public and with coworkers, and by acting as role models for others, by providing guidance and mentoring in both formal and informal settings. Dave moved to the Court Services Unit in 2020, where he has continued to excel in the performance of his duties. We wish Dave all the best in the next phase of his life as he enters retirement after 32 years in law enforcement, 24 of those years being spent here in Kingston. So congratulations to Dave. And moving on to John Vallier, who's retiring on the same day, July 31st. John began his law enforcement career with Peterborough Police in May 1987 before returning to his native Kingston and being hired by Kingston Police in February of 1988. During his time in uniform patrol, he received numerous commendations, most notably for his actions on January 3rd, 1997. On that night, which historical weather records indicate reached 5 degrees below Celsius, John arrived on scene where officers were being made to rescue an individual who was in the water. But the individual becomes so weak he's not able to grab onto the rescue rope that had been tossed to him. According to witness reports, John wasted no time shedding his outer gear and boots before tying a rope around his chest and jumping into the water-covered ice along the edge of the Rideau River. Unfortunately, as John lay down to crawl the last few feet, the victim began to sink. Without hesitation, John plunged himself shoulder deep into the water multiple times until he was able to grasp the victim and pull him up to safety. and subsequent medical care. John received both a Kingston Police Commendation as well as the Governor General Commendation for his actions that night. For the past 12 years, he's worked in our court services unit and has been continuously praised for his easygoing approach and his ability to be courteous and respectful to everyone he speaks to, regardless of their circumstances or background. We wish John all the best in the next phase of his life as he enters retirement after 35 years in law enforcement, 34 of those years with Kingston Police.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chief. I'd like to for the public that are listening, to join us in completing the community survey that's on the link for the police services and the police board. That'd be very helpful in us in creating the strategic plan. So we would appreciate that very much. Is there any other new business? No? Okay. Then I would move, have a motion to move in camera, the next portion of our meeting if we could. And let's take a 5-minute break. So I'll say, Christian, Christian, do you have, oh no, that's for the motion. Yes? Yes, okay. Who else for the motion? Jeff, thank you. All in favor? Then let's meet in 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.